Friday Forum of 2021 or October of 2021. Jump right into it. Big week as usual. At the top of the list, Matt Flanagan has accepted the support specialist position that we've been working on from the member support side. This is huge. He'll start November 1st. Very excited. Everyone was really stoked about what he brings to the table. So super cool. We're going to be rolling out a few new campaigns. The product marketing email campaign. This is a big opportunity for us to open a new channel for education, excitement, feedback with members as we roll out new features. And then tested out Dr. Casey's Kitchen newsletter this week, which was, it is a new experiment with having Casey's perspective, which we all internally know, love, and appreciate, and sharing that with our member audience, which is, it's going to be cool to see how these things work out and continue to build a movement. Helena did a nice deep analysis on the Whoop cross levels sort of case study data, which first of all was really helpful, I think, for Casey as she gets ready for the Whoop podcast, and also opened up some interesting research questions that we can continue to pursue across the two data streams. Excuse me, I'm still getting over a little cold, so forgive the shortness of breath. Tom's podcast pieces was huge, got published in first round review. This was the playbook for the podcast tour that we did in 2020 and that we've continued to extend. This was huge, got a ton of attention, continues to do so. Congrats, Tom. We also got a full digital feature headlined by Levels on Men's Journal. So this is kind of a follow-up to the print article, but Mike D got another nice full banner image, and Stacy's photography continues to just pay huge dividends for us. We also have some great VIPs in the program right now. So Andrew East, who is Sean Johnson, the Olympic gold medalist's husband, is using the program. She posted a really cool IG story. I'm a big fan. This was cool to see in the wild. Bert Kreischer, I know we have some Bert Kreischer fans on the podcast or on the stream right now. He is using the program, and Matt Fraser, the 5-time back-to-back CrossFit world champ, is also using it. We spoke with the CrossFit team as well, so having some good conversations with them, all good stuff. Member support is testing out handwritten notes to detractors. So I want to shout out to the team for doing things that don't scale and really pushing the envelope for making sure we reach out and open up channels with people who may not have gotten the best experience first time. Huge shout out to the team who are taking this on. This is awesome. It's going to be a great learning experience. And we're also continuing to get amazing CSAT scores despite the experiment slowing response times. So continuing to be a really great experiment to help us manage resources. Excuse me. And then lastly, we're kicking off the raise process next week with a founder operator rounds. This is going to be bringing in really high execution founders and operators, continuing to expand the cap table with people who can support us and get distribution and continue to make us an execution machine. We're also going to have some allocation open under the new crowdfunding rules, which will allow our members to get involved. So I'm going to give Zach a minute to just explain what those crowdfunding rules are, if he doesn't mind.
Yeah, sure. So it gets a little technical, so I'll try to keep it simple. There are basically two big changes that recently got pushed out by the SEC that make crowdfunding possible for companies like ours where it didn't make as much sense before. So the first is simply that the amount of money private companies are allowed to raise through crowdfunding has increased pretty substantially. It used to be around 1 million, now it's up to 5 million, so that's cool. The other thing is that the SEC recently permitted something called a special purpose vehicle to be used in crowdfunding. This wasn't allowed before. Without getting too technical, a special purpose vehicle allows people to invest in kind of a unified way so that companies have a single entity to communicate to and through instead of having like hundreds or thousands of small investors to record on their cap tables, keep track of, and communicate with. This investment vehicle also lets companies crowdfund without the risk of accidentally exceeding the SEC's rules relating to the total number of investors private companies can have. So overall, this is a great transparency tool for potential small investors, and it makes it actually feasible for us to communicate with them and reach them in a unified way. So that's it. We're pretty excited that these rules actually enable us to offer investment in Levels to our members. That's it.
Awesome. Thank you for the explanation, Zach. Excited to be able to roll this out so soon after the policy change. A couple other things that I want to shout out. Michael Kummer, who's been testing our program for a while now, had a really cool video showing his realization of the area under the curve differences between exercise plus a sugary meal and just the sugary meal alone. It wasn't immediately clear to him because he had the same postprandial spike, but this kind of breaks down the technical differences, and it was a great realization video. We had a new IP strategy doc go out this week. We have an amazing ultimate guide to metabolic blood tests, which we're of course rolling out some products and features that we'll be able to leverage on this information that we're getting out to our members. New mission patches coming soon, and a new press aggregation page. Shout out to Casey for the idea. So great week and some amazing testimonials from people who are lowering A1C using the Levels app. With that, I want to welcome Dr. Molly Maloof. Molly has been in our orbit now for probably 2+ years. Huge supporter, obviously very aligned intellectually with what we're doing. And as a medical doctor, Stanford lecturer, and investor, she's been just a huge supporter of the Levels mission. And Molly, thanks for joining us. We'd love to hear a couple words.
Hi, guys. So that photo, by the way, is pretty out of date of me. So I'm wearing my hair curly now. I am, a physician. I've been working with investors and executives and entrepreneurs since I was in late 20s, and basically wanted to build a practice that first and foremost optimized health before just fixing sickness. So I found a niche in, basically high net worth individuals in the Bay Area who wanted to learn everything about their bodies. And in 2014, I basically started putting CGMs on myself through a consulting project I did with this company, Sono Intelligence. And basically, Sono came to me initially and they were like, we're looking at interstitial fluid. We want to measure all these different analytes in an interstitial space. And I said, they're like, well, what should we measure and why? And so I did a big research study on like the 21 different biomarkers you can measure. And I go, it's pretty obvious that glucose is a problem for a lot of people. And it looks like this diabetes epidemic is only going to get worse. And so if you guys can do this, you should, but no one's been able to do it the way that you're trying to do it. And frankly, they ended up, long story short, the company ended up selling to OneDrop a couple of years ago. And I don't think the technology they have works, but in the process of working with Sono, I ended up later on being brought on as their head of medical science. And so in the process, we actually built some software, and I actually brought in customers. So at the time, they just kind of like vetoed the whole move, and ended up, the company ran out of cash, ended up getting acquired. And it was the beginning of something really special. And so I spent a lot of time basically trying to deconstruct the curve and reconstruct it with behavioral change. And I teach a course at Stanford on health span extension. And like I'd say 400 slides of the course are metabolism. And so I cover how to eat for healthy metabolism. I cover fasting. I cover how to basically understand glucose monitoring as a diagnostic tool and as a therapeutic device. And so I've kind of like spent a lot of my career studying metabolism, but really the main interest of my job has been, how do you understand health and how do you measure health and what is health itself? And I believe that it's the ability to adapt and self-manage in the face of adversity. And so how do you do that? Well, I believe that the biggest drivers of health are also the biggest drivers of mitochondrial function and dysfunction. So eating too much at the wrong times, the wrong amounts, causes damage to the mitochondria. Not moving the body consistently actually basically doesn't send the signals to the cells to make more mitochondria, to produce more energy. And it's kind of like a car being in a garage running on idle. So it produces a lot of exhaust. And then stress basically damages mitochondria directly. So waste your batteries. And then human connection seems to be one of the best ways to, basically fix stress. And so I've led my career has kind of evolved. And now I'm working for the CEO and founder, excuse me, I'm getting over a cold myself. I'm the CEO and founder of a company called Adama Bioscience. And so my conclusion after years of studying metabolism was that it looks like human relationships are the biggest driver of long-term health and happiness. So I'm commercializing a novel love drug to help create healthier relationships between people. And that's me.
Well, I love the, first of all, the career-long dedication. I know we all appreciate that and appreciate learning from people like yourself who are kind of challenging some of the, are challenging some of the preconceptions and just fully understand the space, metabolic, mitochondrial, and those mechanisms and metaphors are really helpful as well. I really like the car idling in the garage. It makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, just really appreciate having you in the network. Appreciate you taking the time to come on and hang with us. And as always, if there's anything we can do to support and vice versa, I know we will do so. So thanks, Molly.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
All righty. Jumping forward to quick culture and kudos slide. Got a lot this week, actually. So first off, we'll say the prayer. We help you see how food affects your health. Next, I want to just highlight these connections we're having more and more. Scott is trying to win levels bingo. So he's actually preempting people starting. So this is Taylor Sittler, who will be starting some point in the next few weeks. And Scott's already taken the lead and gotten to hang out with him personally, which is quite exciting. And then a few other things I want to highlight. John Cruz has hit 2 years, or he will next week, which is pretty wild. Congrats, John. Thanks for just an unbelievable tenure so far, building some of the core features that we've got, the core structure that we've got in members' hands today. So thank you, John, for everything you've done. Excited for many years ahead. Jackie, I want to highlight real quick. She's been getting onboarded, and definitely this is a great example of just jumping straight in and starting to make adjustments and directly editing the onboarding process through her time going through it. And that's something that we really want to reinforce, taking the initiative and just even if there's small little tweaks that just help you better understand a sentence or better understand an objective in a checklist, it's really important to constantly be iterating and improving the experience. So thank you, Jackie, for taking the initiative there. And then Murilo reinforcing some cultural principles here by pushing back on a request for a synchronous call, which I imagine there were several synchronous calls prior to this email being sent, but someone forwarded this to me because it was a great example of saying, hey, we can actually solve this asynchronously most likely, and we don't need to get on another call before this is taken care of. So appreciate that, Murilo, and really want to reinforce this across the culture as well. Lots of teams are just kind of, they're very institutionalized in this idea that you have to solve things face-to-face on a Zoom call or in person, and we can lead the way a little bit with our how we do meetings and asking if there are actions we can take before jumping on a call. So thanks to everyone on the slide and everyone else who is doing these things daily in the background. Appreciate all of it. Okay, over to Scott.
Can you refresh just to make sure? All right, so just to recap, same thing from last week. Socials on pause, food logging definitely in progress. John's doing a great job there. Guided journey is about to get broken out. I will talk about that in a couple slides. We did pick up a little bit of work on the, we completed a little bit of work on the dashboard stuff. And so I'm reorienting around getting our table stakes design stuff buttoned up and then to get those folks moved on to guided journey. So same priorities as of last week. Just want to highlight that we're still pausing social.
On blood work, we hope to have our phase 2 launch next week. Murilo, in addition to refusing live meetings when they don't have to happen, thank you, Murilo. A lot of great work has been going on, finishing up the results UI that will help us import them and display them. And we should have this going next week. Finally, on the next slide, membership, a quick update, a little shorter than last week. We began work on phase 2, which will include things like surfacing your renewal date in app, saying when you joined, when you'll be expiring, adding some things to drip, and replicating sign-up flow in app. The graph on the right is in the orange, it's people that have joined since membership became an explicit thing. Blue is sort of the old members who were joining in the old way. We've gotten about 250 so far, and I'll double click on that on the next slide, sort of circle back on a few things that I mentioned last week. First of all, on the left side of the screen, subscription at first order is at about 31%. That's about 50% higher than in the old way. So that's great. It's about a third. It's settled in there. And then I also talked last week about conversion rate and how I'm looking at it. Basically, the old flow versus the new flow from when you enter shipping address until when you purchase. We have those extra screens in there now. We've now had this live for about 8 days, and so the numbers are starting to level out. We are seeing a dip in conversion rate in the new way, which makes sense, but it's pretty slight. And there are things we'll do over the next few weeks and months to make that better. But these are kind of the 2 things that I look at most. So I wanted to share them with you. And that's all for me.
Super exciting updates. Thank you, Jan. Right. I'm going to hand these next slides to Scott to guide
That's me.
John.
Yeah.
Tagging E1, we made some progress on the backend and database side, specifically to store and retrieve global and user-specific tags. Initially, this is going to be useful for suggesting tags. We also kick off the work on auto tagging, starting with just single words, and later we can improve it to work with multiple words. Nothing new on the mobile application side. For the next week, we will hopefully release a new internal version with tags coming from database. That means no more hard-coded tags, and with simple automatic tagging after a log is created or updated. We will start working on a new retool dashboard for managing tags as well. That's it.
Awesome. Thank you, John. Tom.
Yeah, just a very quick update here. So we're 2 weeks in now to the nutritionist pilot in the app. There was sort of minimal incremental engagement in week 2 over week 1, meaning the majority of engagement happened in the first week. I think 9 of the 10 connections happened in the first week and then 1 in the second. And then Lauren Sambatero has received the vast majority of messages. I think there are a couple of hypotheses around why this is so. I think the best one is probably that Lauren is the only nutritionist offering a lower price point 1-call option. The other nutritionists offer at a minimum a 4x price point that are longer, anywhere from 1 to 3 or even 6 months. She's also the first nutritionist in the lineup in the roster, so we're going to randomize the order. There's a larger update in threads in the Nutritionist Project forum, so go there if you want to check that out. But the TLDR is that we're chatting with nutritionists to gather some preliminary feedback, but otherwise we're going to continue to roll this out to more members as it stands today.
Awesome. Yeah, it's also, I would imagine the visibility is actually not super high right now. It's a card within other similar looking cards. So I think that's going to be a big driver of interaction. Looking forward to more. Justin.
Okay, not much for table stakes, but Steph did work on a final iconography PR with 63 files changed, so quite a bit of stuff touched. Basically standardizing like the log images that we use, some of the colors that we use for our icons, and also just making sure that like everything's now using shared components for our icons. And I also, as part of dashboard changes, made a new base component for our bottom sheet model so that they can all be consistent and easily, showing these things and making sure they all kind of behave and act the same way. And next up, Steph's going to talk about the dashboard changes.
Nice. So yeah, majority of our work this week went towards dashboard read-through changes. The tooltip, the add log in place functionality is now ready to go in the new chart UI. And so basically we hooked up animations and opacity filters to show the tooltip in different ways as the members interacting with the chart. And so when they're scrubbing across the line, it dims a little bit. And then if they don't interact with it for more than 5 seconds, it disappears completely. We have a tooltip line now extending all the way to the bottom of the chart. And so to prevent members from possibly thinking that it's part of a glucose spike, we added Justin added the bottom modal when you want to change the glucose time range on the home chart. The chart duration, the time scale now sticks beyond. If you close the app and open it back up again, we persist that state, so it'll stick at whatever you last set it as. Sleep buttons are back now on the chart as well, and then the drawer is gone as well. And although it doesn't show in this screenshot, it's in PR right now, and so we're moving away from having that drawer, and it'll be on the profile page now as well. And then entries now log in line with your last glucose reading rather than at a static position at the bottom of the chart. And I believe that's most of the dashboard changes. And then next up, we're going to do some additional refinements with the metabolic scorecard. Alan designed some beautiful background opacities, and so that's coming next week.
Great updates. Thank you both. Scott.
Right. I just want to say, I think the work that you guys have been doing has really shaped up. I really like that we took a couple weeks to get this. I think a lot of the membership, at least the anecdotal feedback that we're getting, is like so glad that a lot of these things are back on the graph. a lot clearer in terms of info hierarchy. So, all right, guided journey. First off, I just want to say thanks. I mean, I think that there has been a lot of work done on this, and then I kind of changed jobs. And so I was shuffling the deck a little bit around what I've been working on. It was really heavy for me, this project, because I feel a good bit of pressure. I wanted to do well, and I'm glad. I think finally this week we got some clarity. So we'll talk a little bit, both clear eyes and full hearts. So next slide. Okay, so here was a guided journey when I got started. I thought this will be fun. Let's just dive in and we'll figure out how to get this iceberg lifted up out of the ocean. And then, as with all icebergs, next slide, you go down under the water and you realize there's quite a lot there, way more than you initially set out to do. Next slide. And when I use this iceberg metaphor, I really mean like we're trying to take a boat and pull the iceberg out of the ocean. And if it was just that little piece above the water, that would be nice. And we've got a lot of boats that size that can do that. But what we don't have is a boat that can pull that entire big thing, including all the stuff under the water. And not only that, we don't want anything to do with a boat that big. So what do we do about this? I got some help this week. Next slide. I'll just talk about it from a culture standpoint. So we are a remote company. We are an async company. Next slide. That to me means remote first and async first. And I think like there's a tendency to, when you sort of get into these phases where you're kind of like at the 5-yard line, can't quite get it across. I think at least for me, there's a tendency to just try to hammer through it. And especially when we're remote first and async first, I think the tendency can be to try to just take it on yourself. And I had a good moment this week where I got some help. And so I just wanted to call out, go ahead to the next slide, that when we say remote, we don't mean alone. And when we say async, we don't mean never together. And I think it was through me talking to Alan and through talking to David that I was able to get this across. So next slide. Here was the doc that I was sort of lovingly putting together and grooming. And if you notice, I guess, yeah, one more slide. In the phasing part, you know, when you get to something called phase 7, I think that was probably a good indicator to me and a bunch of other people that maybe we had bitten off too much of an iceberg. And so I circulated this to Alan and to David, and I got some really good feedback that I wanted to share. So next slide. So Alan had two things. One, are there really 7 phases? I think that was him probably saying, I'm not sure you've thought through this well enough. Maybe we can condense. But the cool thing that he actually said to me was, are these actually phases? I don't think that they are. We could actually get started on probably 5 of these at the same time. And then I think David really drove the same point home. There's a lot here. And I think having that feedback is great to just like give me permission to go ahead and break it down even further. And so that's where we're going to get to. Next slide. So, oh, there were supposed to be 3 boats there and a bomb icon on the, dang it. That's all right. Emoji game. What we're going to do is, instead of, you know, upgrading to like this massive ship that can pull the iceberg out of the ocean, the point is to break the iceberg apart so that we can take all the little ships that we already have that we know how to use, that operate well, that are part of our culture, and use those and just break the problem down. Next slide. So when we talk about guided journey, what we're going to do is, sorry, one more, keep the guided part, because that's very, very important. That is through all of the customer feedback, exactly what we got to. But on the journey part, we found that this encompassed 4 probably separate things that we could get started on, keeping the guided flavor, next slide, but going to 4 different projects. So we're going to have guided onboarding, we're going to have guided check-ins, we're going to have guided scoring, and we're going to have guided recommendations. So using a lot of the data science and the smarts and the personalization, all of those things are going to run through, but these are going to be 4 separate projects. Now, the benefit to this, one more slide, is that each of these projects can have a different responsible individual. I may do all 4 of them, but I don't need to. And they all have separate phasing. So we could decide, hey, we're going to do all of onboarding, but maybe we only go through phase 2 of check-ins. And then we can start on phase 1 of scoring. All of these things can sort of happen in tandem, but the point is that it's not this massive monster project that we're trying to ship in a waterfall fashion. So this was the clarity that I got this week. Next steps for me are to break these into the priority database, and we're going to call them guided onboarding, guided check-ins, guided scoring, et cetera. And then we can sort of put them in as we see fit in terms of priorities. So feel like we've got some movement here. Thanks everybody for the patience. I know it's been a couple weeks since there's been a substantive update. My immediate next step is to work with Alan. We got started on designs yesterday and last night around onboarding. He's going to talk about that, I think, right now. But that's going to be the first thing that we get started on, that we will eventually be doing development work on very soon. So thank you.
Love it.
Hey, Yeah, thanks, Scott. That's a great update. I feel like we made a bit of a breakthrough on the guided journey this week, actually. Can we see the next slide, please? So focus areas this week were the dashboard, guided journey, tagging, and then a bunch of triage and hiring and looking at the brand work. I'm going to go through each one of these really briefly. Next slide, please. So looking at the dashboard, I think this is something I just put out there this week. I've been thinking about it a bit. And what I've been wondering about is, I feel like on the dashboard, something's missing. And we've talked about this being an intentional choice, about not having real-time glucose or a hero metric at the top. Starting to look at ways that we can potentially reintroduce glucose at the front there to support the real-time work with the IRB, potentially ways that we can, make that gracefully scale where you do have to swipe to get the data. And so this is just an example of one of those experiments where as over time, perhaps the glucose kind of like fades out. And then finally, after maybe like an hour or two, a little button comes up and prompts you to scan. So that's a light effort. Next slide. So guided journey. This is something that came up yesterday that kind of blew my mind as I was talking to Scott, and it really connects well with that notion of actually finding time to jam together. And that was that, members have different priming for mornings and nighttime rituals. And right now, as we've talked about the day review, it's been something that you do in the morning. And we've talked about integrating things like log resolution and wrapping up stuff from yesterday. Although what we've been sort of arrived at yesterday was, in the morning, I'm on the go. And so don't make me work. We shouldn't be associating effort and jobs with your health and wellness, at least not in the Levels app. And so we might want to potentially think about rejiggering a couple things around so that the morning is more focused on optimism, getting ready for the day, looking forward, something to do. And perhaps in the evening, as you're winding down, we talk about, wrapping up the day. So next slide. So mornings. So here's an example. We'll probably have to do something about this crazy gradient at some point. The text is kind of tiny here in this little zoomed out view, but this is an example of someone who scored not particularly well. They got 55 out of 100. And then below that, we've got some interesting motivational text showing you're actually not alone. Like it looks like perhaps a large percent of our users also scored this amount yesterday. So in this example, like over 32% of our users scored between 55 and 60 yesterday. There's plenty of opportunity, to do great today. Next slide. And so, thinking about scale, and we're starting to experiment with this a little bit, what's a great way to sort of show that? And perhaps as you hit next, we transition and, actually pulling out and looking at, like better representations of the user population somehow. This probably isn't the right one, but finding ways to just make it feel like you're not alone in this journey. And there's other people that are also doing great, but also, in the same point in their metabolic journey. Third slide is looking at ways to sort of celebrate. So if you are kicking ass and you're doing great, we can actually say, oh, only 10% of me, or whatever percentage it is, of level members scored that well yesterday. So you're kind of an elite company, for example. And then of course, providing a little bit of a prompt or a tip for the day. Next slide. Ooh, back one more. Did we skip one? No. Okay, next one. Yeah, and so in the evening, perhaps this is a better framing for like kind of wrap it up. You're probably not going to remember any food that you had yesterday or a snack or something like that. So next slide. This is a good chance to sort of rejigger things a little bit, find an opportunity to kind of address those anomalies or those logs from the day, and then finally, like a little bit of a good night. I think this is sort of for placement only in here, but if you did do a great job or you log some more food and you've been doing well, we want to celebrate it here as sort of a goodbye or good night for the rest of the evening. Next slide. So in the guided journey, we started talking also about, can we check in with you a little bit? Any sort of guided journey probably has some sort of sense of checking in on how you're doing. There's lots of different ways to sort of check in on things like mood or status. And here's a couple different ones we've started to explore. There's sort of the really traditional basic one, like a Likert scale. That's a 5-point scale from worst to better. That's probably what all the academics would prefer. There's something like the PAM, the photographic affect meter there, the second one, that allows us to collect not just how you're feeling, but how strongly you're feeling it through just selecting a single image. There's something like the third one, which is a bit more free form, and that would probably be just specific to levels. And that's where we could label whatever we wanted there. We probably want to still stick with a 5-point scale. And then the last one, which is probably the most visually compelling and probably the easiest, which is just emoji. Like, how are you feeling? Feeling great, sort of neutral, meh. And so I think there's sort of pros and cons to each one of these, probably leaning towards emoji or some variation of that. I think we'd have to resolve the sort of the visual language a little bit, but that's sort of the direction we're going in with a check-in. Next slide. So during that work, just a subtle thing, didn't take that much time, but there's a bit of an observation around scoring. And I think this is going to almost create like a little sub-project for us, which was, Murillo has been doing some great work on expanding the range of the score. And some of us have felt like, well, now because the range is bigger, we're scoring more poorly. And I think part of the challenge there is that we're still thinking about it as a letter grade. And pretty much anything below 60 for anyone is going to feel like a fail. And so this is an example of where we are right now with the scoring system. And then next slide. And so when we start thinking about it as a progress bar, it actually feels really different. It's more about, is that half full of a glass feels not nearly as bad when it's something like this as a percentage. And so I think there's kind of this interesting interplay between both the number and sort of the visual device that we use to communicate it. And I think there's also kind of some subtle stuff that's coming through here. If you look on the right here, so maybe I got a 10. Well, the interesting thing is that actually less of the negative visual device is present because you got less of that value, right? So when you're doing well, there'll be more of the positive reinforcement, and when you're doing negatively, it'll kind of recede a little bit more into the background. And that's kind of like a nice little elegant solution there, and totally stumbled upon it inadvertently, but I think that's potentially something that we could integrate into scoring to transition from like a report card to a little bit more of like a progress meter type thing. Next slide. So it occurred to me, almost done, it occurred to me last week that I started talking about the brand work. I didn't actually articulate exactly what that's going to be. I was talking more about the rationale, but there is going to be a bunch of really interesting outputs from this work. We're going to get some refresh on the color and typography. The mark isn't going to change or anything like that, but we're going to sort of freshen it up to align it more to the product. There'll be a website reskin. We'll have some fresh icons. I definitely shouldn't be spending my time doing icons right now. We're going to have a whole bunch of illustrations for the app and for editorial needs. And we're going to have some nice spiffy animations for things like the intro screen, onboarding, some celebrations, and potentially some bumpers at the beginning and end of videos. So that's kicked off this week. We're looking to wrap it by early December. We'll start seeing some outputs from that pretty soon. Next slide. And we posted a job, which is very exciting for me. Love to see a visual design job go out there. We had a ton of engagement already. Went up yesterday. We've already had 5,800 impressions on that tweet, a bunch of media views. We've got 2 applications already, and had a couple pings on Twitter. So I think excited to see that go out and get some great candidates in. So.
Huge updates. Thank you, Alan, for always walking us through a comprehensive design class, really. All right, hiring update. We've removed the support specialist role as we filled that. Right now, we just have this one open role if you go to our workable page, but we have a few more coming as an outflow from the work on growth and other areas of the business. So we'll have a couple new posts most likely in the coming week or so. And yeah, keep eyes on levels.link/careers if you're watching this. Right.
All right, on member experience, on the member insights, probably most of you saw an update from Mike Deet this morning about the order, but no glucose, which we've been talking about for a while. So we created a type form survey looking for a little bit of feedback, plan to ship it on Wednesday to kind of a first batch and iterate and kind of add more to it, and already identifying kind of second phases for that project. So a little bit like we want to start doing research projects like this, like as more of a conveyor belt where it's, kind of much more, we can just kind of line them up and start executing. So trying to get more speed behind our ability to execute on these types of things where it's more repeat and rinse. So looking forward to kind of operationalizing that. On the support, we've talked about Matt, super excited. He comes to us from the NFL. Not only does he have, lots of football stats, but I think it's maybe the most unsolicited references I've ever seen of a candidate, of people that were just emailing us, kind of randomly, supporting him in the journey. So that was great to see. So super excited to have him on board in a couple of weeks. We, as we continue to experiment with the slowing down our response to support, we now, I think, have 2 weeks in a row where it's more like 58, 59% responding within an hour. And our CSAT continues to be in the 97 to 98% range, which is awesome to see. Really freeing up the team to take on more projects, to get more involved, and improve, and makes it more efficient for us just in terms of how we staff. I forgot the write-up, but as we mentioned it, Jesse, who knew, was trained in calligraphy. So when we started internally looking for who's got the best penmanship, and it definitely wasn't me, I can't even read my own signature. He stepped up and sat down in a coffee shop, with probably Hemingway sitting right next to him, and started writing these out and knocking it. So we're going to get him a nice fountain pen that he can expense. And we've sent 10 of these out right now. We'll probably do a couple more batches. We're going to start with the heavily manual, just to make it real, make it personal, see how long it takes. I really did appreciate Dr. Molly's, link in terms of there's better ways to do this at scale. So we could scale if we found it works. But I view this a little bit of like, Lori's flowers, of like something that it's different, it sets us apart. And even if it isn't scalable, doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. So super excited about this. And thank you for Jesse for taking this up. And who knew that you had such great penmanship? So that's awesome. And then lastly, as JM's very well aware of all the work from TruePill on the IRB, and that kind of trying to get to the contract signed. That's the update from member experience.
Amazing. Thank you. Ben.
Growth. So closing the loop from last week, we had $63,000 of revenue that was reported as being too high. So I'm closing the loop for our team and for anyone who's watching. But what ended up happening is there were some test orders that had gone through. And what happens when a decimal place is misplaced is sometimes revenue can increase by $63,000. So anyways, that didn't actually hit our books. It was just something that happened in Retool. So wanted to close the loop that we ended the week last week with 131K and 360 for the month. Next slide, please. So weekly recognized revenue, $82,000. And for the month, we're at 442. No changes to cash, debt, or runway. Next slide is Jesse with an update on mission patches.
All right, cool. Really quick update here. We have 4 mission patches in production. A few lessons learned. Well, I guess just one big one is to set all of the pieces against the slowest factor in the process. So in this case, it's the actual production of the mission patches. There's the first review, second review, which some of the patches are still in that phase, and then they actually go to production. So when I first tackled this project or made a plan to, I made all the type forms and emails to collect addresses, but didn't want to leave any members hanging, thinking that they were going to receive something, but not receive something for a month and a half. So I think we're going to ship those emails on Monday once we're certain that the patches are good to go in production. And then if, barring any production snafus, we should have these shipped to Lori's house, who's running distribution. So thank you so much, Lori, by the first week of November. And then hopefully we should have these shipped out before Lori goes on vacation November 17th. And that's it for mission patches.
Can't believe you're hand stitching all of those patches, Jesse. That's incredible. Thank you for doing that for us.
I only do things that don't scale.
Thank you. Tom.
All right, some weekly highlights, a couple new fun VIPs. So as mentioned, Bert Kreischer, who on the left side there is the host of Two Bears, One Cave, among other podcasts. He's also a famous stand-up comedian, has been on Joe Rogan and a bunch of other popular outlets a ton of different times. He has joined the program, and we're considering advertising on his show, which might seem surprising, but Whoop and other health and wellness companies have been very successful on there. Noah Kagan, cool example of someone who has been on our radar. He's a somewhat famous entrepreneur and content creator around entrepreneurship. But he actually came inbound to Sam saying, I've been paying attention to your content. You're a really interesting thinker and I want to have you on my show. So just a really cool example of how we're starting to attract all the people that we want to get in touch with. And then on the influencer partnership side of things, lots of YouTube traction. So on the top there is a new video from Michael Coomer, who's a longtime affiliate. Recommend checking out some of his videos if you're new to the team. And really cool that he unlocked an insight that he actually overlooked using the compare feature in the app, which was just really cool to see. And then two other super large content creators, Andrew East and Sean Johnson, as Josh mentioned, as well as Bobby Parrish of Flav City, both have well over 1 million YouTube subscribers, and both are going to be working on content for us in the next few months. So excited about those. And then lastly, just a shout out to two of our favorite partners and people in the world, Drew Purewitt and Kelly Levesque. Both had awesome organic mentions over the last week, and they're just great. They're always thinking about ways to plug levels and integrate it really organically into their content, which is really cool to see. Next slide. And then, yeah, I've mentioned this probably a couple of times. Looks like my slides are weird, but we have a few tier 1 podcasts coming up. Casey's just been killing it on this front. So keep an eye out for these: Whoop, Bulletproof, which got rebranded, Genius Life, and Mark Hyman. Casey's recording the first 2 next week. And Max Lugavere's Genius Life is going to be released next week. And then Mark Hyman later on in December. That's it.
Huge. Thank you, Tom and Casey. Haney.
Yeah, so a couple of really big fundamental pieces this week. We did a piece, shout out to Sam on this, what is the metabolic health crisis? This was spurred by an email from him several months ago, actually, just saying, hey, do we have a piece that really outlines what the metabolic health crisis is? Obviously, that's our mission, to reverse it. It's touched on in various other pieces, but we didn't have anything with this exact headline. And so we pulled together pieces from other things, and we sort of organized it in a 10 stats that really illustrate what the metabolic health crisis is, and went out. It was a good opportunity for us to have a writer go out and find some new stats, also take advantage of Jeff, who creates the graphics for us now, to redo some of the charts, so we're not just pulling them out of the papers, but making them look beautiful in a nice levels way. So excited to have that piece out. It's another good reference piece. Really nice Q&A with a woman named Alicia Jackson, who runs a company called EverNow about women's health and menopause. Some really good information in there. And then, as has been mentioned, the big blood test piece. So obviously a huge shout out to Casey for really doing this piece. We just put a nice graphic on it and formatted it and put it up on the blog. But this is going to be huge. I think this will become one of our most popular pieces. Tons of useful information. And, this starts the process now of really promoting this through social. Casey's going to do a podcast. JTPR is looking at this. We're going to see how much sort of micro content we can generate from here. On the Everyone on Content front, it was mentioned Tom's podcast piece got published this week. We think it's going to be huge. I think this is full of all sorts of good information. And then quickly, the other stuff happening in the department, work this week on a hiring plan, just starting to think about what it might look like to expand the content side, what other roles might be useful as we grow and scale. We are assigning a piece on trauma and metabolic health. I might have mentioned this in the past, but it's a really interesting topic. And then on the email front, besides the Dr. Casey newsletter, we are going to start a nurture email series, which is sort of a series of emails that will go out to people when they sign up. Whoop does this really well. You get an email from Whoop about 3 days after you sign up that says, what is HRV? So we're going to take some of our core content, probably a lot of the stuff that's in the app now. Is what is glucose? Why does it matter? What's metabolic health? And just deliver those in emails to really just kind of increase engagement and education. Finally, the stat of the week, I just looked last night quickly. It's the end of the day, so this will probably go up, but huge open rate on the new Dr. Casey's Kitchen email. We're really happy about it. We didn't know what to do with the subject line there, so we just did a straight new newsletter, Dr. Casey's Kitchen. Didn't really say what it was about, and I thought that might depress opens, but 34% is huge for us. No real click through, because the point of this is that everything's done in the email itself, but I think that was a really good signal for that new project, and that's it for content.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Thank you. All right. We're down to the individual contributions. Mercy, go ahead and kick it off.
Okay. Professionally, I would say the design stuff again, and also the content stuff. That's super cool. I'm excited for those pieces and new updates. Personally, I've been in Philly now for a full week, which is crazy, but really like it up here. I got to see Josh and his new wife last weekend, I guess, and it's just been a nice change. So
Yeah, very nice. Justin.
For me, it's all the design and UX thought and work that's gone in. That's just great. Love it. And husband and I started watching Squid Game. So looking forward to watching that this weekend. Probably watch a few episodes. It hooks you in. So yeah, excited.
Very good. Thanks. Gabriel.
Yeah, another +1 on design stuff. I'm just continually floored by the pace and quality of all the design work. Personally, it's sweater weather in Chicago. I guess that's exciting for people who like wearing sweaters. I miss summer a bit there.
Scott.
Work-wise, I'm excited that we got the design job posted. I'm really excited for hopefully somebody to come on to help push the pixels forward. Personally, a lot of TV to catch up on. Succession had a new season come out, I think a week ago maybe, and I haven't started. So I'm going to hopefully get through a lot of that this weekend if I can.
Someday I will watch the first season.
So good.
I don't think Lori is with us, so Haney.
Professionally, I will say Scott's lovely slide of remote does not equal alone, and async doesn't equal never together. I feel like that is so key and should probably go as part of our principles of effective internal communication doc. On the personal side, I'll keep the TV recs going. We discovered a really great show on HBO called The Other Two. It's hilarious. Molly Shannon and a bunch of people we didn't know, but check it out.
Love this. Make the TV recs, people. Alan.
Personal highlight was getting this job listing out because it was really nice because it actually, as I was thinking about putting this together on how we work, it occurred to me that this is probably one of the healthiest places I've worked. And so I had this opportunity to kind of like soak in the really, great culture and vibes on the team. So that was kind of a highlight for me. And the personal side, I'll continue with TV too. It's raining for the first time in the Bay Area in since March or January even. So we're gonna also continue with making popcorn and cuddle down and watch movies and stuff with the kids.
Nice, enjoy. Lauren.
Yeah, just excited to be getting oriented and involved with the IRB. And I'm with the Bay Area rainy weekend crew. So we'll probably be taking advantage of some of these TV recommendations, but maybe not Squid Games yet. That's a leap for me.
Understand. Yeah, I have no idea even what it's about yet. I've just been hearing great things. Let's see. Sam is not with us, I don't think. Chris.
On the work side, I just want a huge shout out to Jinlu. The work she recently did to try to remove the support of having to manually reach out to members who fail to fill out the medical consult form. That is like constantly either a number 1 or number 2 issue, and it's a multiple reach out and lots of very painful and easy for error prone. So really just want to say huge call out and kudos to Jinlu on helping that. Really help support scale without adding armies of agents. On the personal side, we are making a concrete container or slab to hold manure in. So that's always fun on #farmlife.
Love it. Yeah. Speaking of TV, let's get some vlogs going.
Yeah.
Let's see. Tony is out this week. Andrew is not able to join us at this section. I think Marilo is with us. Marilo?
Yeah. So professionally, it's been a full week, and so it's just nice to see the progress being made across hiring, across the projects that I'm involved in. So it's just, and being in the same time zone just makes my day so much fuller. So yeah, I've been appreciating that. Personally, I'm taking a trip this weekend to a bookstore so I can get some Brazilian Portuguese books, some local author books, so I can take it back home to Portugal.
Awesome. Have a great trip. Jackie.
Really exciting. I'm personally really excited about some of the content that Haney shared. like specifically what is the metabolic health crisis, like just having something that I can share out when people are asking me from levels about that is awesome. So even though like I know all that's out there on our blog, just I think some of the resources where it kind of has it all in one place are really exciting for me. And personally, I'm living in a newish area. I've been here for 2 weeks on the Lower East Side, and I've been in Manhattan for a while, but haven't been specifically on the Lower East Side. So I'm excited to kind of get out and explore new spots in my new hood.
Great. Enjoy it. Casey.
Yeah, so I would say professionally, one of the things that was so awesome this week was seeing Helena's work on the WHOOP study data analysis. Just so impressed by how deep she went, how proactive she was on that, and asking just some tough questions, pushing back a little bit on the data. It was just really cool to see how much ownership you took of that. So thank you so much, and definitely feel super prepared for the podcast because of your work. And I think it also just sets the foundation for some really interesting future studies with WHOOP and about sleep and glucose data. So thank you. Personally, I'm in New York City this week and it's beautiful and sunny, and I'm excited to get outside and walk around and do some prep for the Dave Asprey and WHOOP podcast next week.
Love it all. Jesse.
Yeah, professionally, I think it's going to be the podcast release on Monday with Casey, Sam, and Ben about time management. That was really awesome, and I definitely need some help on my email game, so I'm going to be putting some work on there. And personally, my brother's coming home on Sunday, so excited to hang out with him.
Nice. Enjoy. Give him a pile of those handwritten notes to help out on. Rob.
So earlier this week, there was a meeting of the World Economic Forum's Nutrition Subcommittee, and they have adopted metabolic health as a primary driver, which is just sort of amazing. Now, implementation is another story. You know, that's where things need to go next. But just the fact that we've, you know, sort of impressed upon them the importance of this issue, you know, obviously this will have great reverberation for levels, especially with, you know, everything that's going on and the blog, et cetera. You know, there's a lot of synergy right now. So, you know, congratulations to all of us. From a personal standpoint, my daughter's appearing in A Midsummer Night's Dream tonight at Lowell High School. So that's the excitement for the week.
Have fun. That sounds great. And huge to hear about the World Economic Forum. That's massive. John.
Yeah, I can't believe it's 2 years already. It feels like a lot of time because we have made and built so many things, but it also feels not enough because there is still tons of work to do, and that's very exciting. Another exciting thing that happened this week is that I had one-on-ones with Jackie, Tony, and Jeremy, and all of them were in Spanish. So kind reminder that my schedule is also open to whoever wants to practice their Spanish.
That's awesome to hear. Absolutely love that. Wish I could partake, but unfortunately I cannot. Kunal.
Yeah, my favorite moment this week was I saw an email pop up in my inbox with the subject, how one startup got its founders 100+ podcast interviews in 6 months. And I didn't even know this was in the works. And I remember very clearly the thought that crossed my mind was, is it possible that there is someone out there that is more prolific than Tom and our team? And I click it, of course, and it says Tom Griffin at Levels. And I just went like, of course. So that was quite special. Besides that, a +1 to all of the cool stuff on design, like Alan, some of the ideas you come up with are just extraordinarily amazing and original. Plus that, like the guided journey work and grouping it up into different projects, I think is really exciting. So it'll be really cool to see that come together. And then on the personal front, I am on the Squid Game train all the way. So looking forward to some of that this weekend.
Awesome. Yeah, I heard some crazy stat that like 140 million people watched the first episode in the first week, and the next fastest growth was 70 million people in a week for Bridgerton, for a Netflix original. So it's like an order of magnitude or something crazy, faster growth. Let's see, Dom is currently in Hawaii doing the high seas research program, which is really awesome. Looking forward to his update when he gets back. Mike D.
Yeah, I am not in Hawaii. So I'll go ahead and +1 to definitely the design and the guided journey work. And then a few of the recent, our blog's awesome, but a few of the recent pieces, the dietary philosophy, the metabolic health crisis, and then the ultimate guide to understanding the cholesterol panel and blood work, I think are huge pieces. I know personally, I'm definitely interested, and I know our members will be. And then, you know, the evolution of our podcast is pretty nuts in such a short amount of time. Remember, like the first few episodes just talking about building, and then more recently, Haney hosted Mark Champagne. I had no idea who he was. It was super cool to hear his story and then do some digging. And then obviously I'm excited for the pod with Casey and Ben and Sam about Inbox Zero. So big shout out to everyone, specifically Ben, and then obviously for Haney for crushing it. Personally, I'm not on the Squid Game. I am probably one of the few people that have no idea what it's about. That's it.
Stacy is in Italy, enjoying her time, I'm sure. Tom.
Yeah, I'm going to +1 to, I wasn't planning on saying this, but Haney hosting that interview with Mark Champagne. I'm like 15 or 20 minutes into it, but he's just like totally killing it as an interviewer. So shout out to Haney, and everyone should listen to that. And then, yeah, I think to JM's update, it's just like amazing to me how things seem to just materialize for us. And I know they don't. It's just a testament to how amazing our team is, but I just have this deep-seated confidence that we're going to succeed. And it seems like other people do as well, which is just really cool. And on that note, really excited about the team growth in general, and Matt coming on board, and the fact that both Haney and Alan are going to be hiring soon. And personally was traveling for like 12 days. And now I'm back. So excited to hang out in New York, get into a routine before I leave again for New Orleans next week.
Very good stuff. Yeah, I was off the grid a little bit for a couple of weeks, got back, had a huge backlog of Levels podcasts to catch up on, and just binged through it. I'm caught up. It's amazing. I mean, we have this backlog of just fascinating, interesting conversations, all of which feel pretty different and dynamic because we rotate out hosts and subject matter. It's just so fun. It's genuinely like, I'm excited for every episode, and I don't think it's due to internal bias, but of course I can't erase it. I'm also stoked about the team. John hitting 2 years. Like, it's so crazy that we've got so much time under our belts, but in all honesty, like, we've accomplished far more, I think, than that timeline would tell you. So it's just fun. And I have to +1 the content. There's just feels like we're firing on all cylinders, but content in particular, there's like branches growing out of it that are rapidly like paying new dividends. So yeah, it's all awesome. And yeah, I'm going to keep going here. I think this week, getting back up to speed on stuff and just the pace of progress on a whole host of initiatives, which I won't mention by name because there's so many of them, but you know, to JM's point, things are coming available to us, and it's really fun to work with a team that is so intentional about everything we do and not jumping on the next shiny thing. Like, there are opportunities that present themselves, and I feel like what we do well is continuing to march forward without getting distracted. That's been just such a cool thing to experience in real time. Personally, getting over a chest cold, getting way behind on my marathon training. That 4-hour objective is just lost to the ages, but maybe next time around. I'll get back into it this week, I think. All right, Steph.
Professionally, 2 things. The guided journey stuff that Scott, you spoke about today. I love the chunking out of smaller icebergs, and it feels like that's kind of what we've been doing without realizing, and to have that, I guess, visualized in a new way is really exciting. And I love just the overlap of all these teams getting to work together on all these smaller, more peaceable objectives. And the design iterations, last week, as part of the work with bringing some of the functionality of the tooltip into the new charts, I checked out to an old Git branch and saw what the app looked like even just a few months ago. And I think it's easy to kind of like that boiling the frog mentality where you just get so used to seeing the changes that when you actually deliberately go back and see what it looked like a few months ago, I was like, whoa, so much change. And so it's been really cool to take a step back and look how much progress we've made. And Alan, the designs just looked phenomenal. And so that was kind of a cool personal retrospective experience. And personally, Helena and I are doing the exact opposite of a TV weekend. We're going to Joshua Tree this weekend off the grid. And I'm so stoked, oh my God, to just like sit in the wilderness. And so, yeah, we're checking out early today and can't wait to spend some off the grid time.
Have an absolute blast. That sounds great. Miss Joshua Tree. Ben.
Yeah, levels wise, super stoked on the Loom that Alan put together for the job posting. It was such a personal touch to watch it, like just sitting in the shoes of somebody who might be interested, to see someone who you're going to work with and just watch them talk about the company was so cool. And I was like, man, we got to do this for all postings. Like there's no reason not to. So hat tip to Alan for setting the bar high. And I think we should carry it forward because there's no reason not to. Personal front, no TV recommendations, but feel so goofy saying this, but I discovered this new artist, or not new, but he's a singer-songwriter named John Hyatt. And the reason I feel ridiculous is because he's like one of the greatest songwriters of the past 40 or so years. And I didn't think it was possible to discover like a Tom Petty or a Jackson Brown, like somebody who is so prolific in their career that you're like, how could you not know? Anyways, randomly discovered because of the Spotify algo, and like the craziest singer-songwriter. So if you like music, John Hyatt, you got to check him out. He's unbelievable.
That is a good tip. Miz, enjoy your trip. How?
Yeah, on both professional and personal fronts, I'm just really excited to get back with the pack, and had a really good road trip for the last like 4 weeks. And the most excited part was met with Ben, Justin, Sam, and Campbell. So yeah, really glad I'm back.
Great to have you back. Zach.
Yeah, on the personal front, lots to be excited about. Our move is finished. Nate is still doing really well. We're sleeping like all right, which is pretty cool. On the professional front, you know, I'm just always struck by how excited I am about our core principle of transparency. You know, so much of the stuff that we've discussed today, you know, our podcasts, Alan's Loom, the potential partnerships in terms of businesses that we have, so much of that stems from our just dogged commitment to being transparent and to questioning standard business priors through the lens of transparency. It's been so powerful for us. And I just, it's just the coolest thing. It's one of my favorite things about working with this group and being with this company. So I'll just shout out our transparency culture.
2 shout outs for transparency on this call. That's good. Helena.
Yeah, levels wise, I'm just really excited because it seems like a lot of projects are coming together and pushing forward in like a really intentional, great way. So I'm really excited to just, you know, be super busy. And also huge shout out to Casey. Like, I don't think everyone realizes like how much work goes into like prep for a podcast or something like that. Like, I just think you're killing it, and you deserve some recognition for that. And also huge shout out to Alan as well. We've had some really meaningful conversations about design and personalized insights this week. And then, you know, on a personal front, I'm excited to get out in the desert.
Have a great time. See some pics on the Threads water cooler. All right. Well, we went a little over here, but I think this cafe time has slowly become the individual contribution section, which is fine. We got a little time here on the last 5 minutes of the cafe, which I think we should just wrap right into this. So we can trim this part out starting from